following parable is based on The Clapping Institute, developed by Education Northwest. In this story, Professor Clappington pretends to be investigating how well different people clap, but of course, there's a hidden message behind the parable. In this one, Professor Clappington is far more interested in the way people react to having or not having clear learning goals and success criteria to guide their performance. Consider the impact of learning goals and success criteria with these three participants, but, of course, reflect on how well we, as teachers, make learning goals and success criteria clear and understandable to our students, and what can happen when we don't. Let's check in with the professor, who is welcoming his first participant. Welcome to the Clapping Institute. I'm Professor Clappington, and I'll be reviewing your clapping abilities. Please begin. The first participant, a little shyly, says, "Well, okay, here goes," and claps quickly, a bit nervously. Professor Clappington thanks the first participant and told him he would now rate his performance. "Oh," said the first participant, "should I explain anything about my thinking and my experience with clapping?" "That's not necessary," replied Professor Clappington. "I'm an expert in clapping." Professor Clappington thought for a while, looked at the participant and said, "I give you a 4.5. Thank you. You may go." Surprised and a little confused, the participant left. Of course, you know the goal here is not evaluating clapping performance. Instead, consider these questions for discussion and share your ideas with others. As you reflect on the strengths or weaknesses of the learning goals, success criteria, and climate in this first scenario, consider a time when you've been in a learning setting where the learning goals and success criteria were similarly presented. Chances are we've all been in this setting before. How do students perform when they don't know what's expected of them and what success looks like? Another day, another participant. Let's join Professor Clappington as he welcomes a new participant with slightly different plans for the session. "Welcome to the Clapping Institute," says Professor Clappington. "You're here today to clap for me, Professor Clappington, world-renowned expert in clapping, because I'm interested in how well different people clap. I will assess your clapping based on my expert opinion of your performance. Do your best." "What are the things I should do when I clap?" the second participant asks, to which Professor Clappington replies, "Do your best. That's what's important." The participant thinks for a moment, then asks, "Will I receive a grade or a score? How will you tell about my performance?" Professor Clappington replies, "I am a world-renowned clapping expert. I'm even certified. I know how to assess your performance. Do you have any other questions?" "Well," says the participant, "I'll try my best." She claps with some variation in rhythm and softly sings to herself while she's clapping. "Here's my clapping song. This is a song to help me clap." Professor Clappington considers the participant's clapping performance. After a few moments, he responds with his feedback. "I reviewed your clapping and have scored your performance. Overall, it was a good performance. The variation in your rhythm was okay, but the variation could also be confusing and suggest you don't really know much about clapping. I really don't like your singing, and I'm not sure how it supports your clapping performance. So overall, you did a pretty good job of clapping, and I felt you tried hard." "Gee, thanks," says the participant, and leaves the room. Again, reflect on these questions for discussion about learning goals, success criteria, and climate. Consider differences in this setting from the first. How did this difference contribute or detract from improving student performance? What kind of message is sent when simply telling students to try their best rather than clearly defining what success is? It's time for Professor Clappington's final clapping review. Professor Clappington welcomes his third participant with a different approach. "Welcome to the Clapping Institute," says Professor Clappington. You're here today to help me better understand more about how people clap. Your task today is to show me how well you can clap based on 3 different dimensions. The first, clapping volume. Second, clapping appropriateness. And third, the creativity in your clapping. Let me explain a little bit more about what each of these dimensions means and how I'll be assessing your clapping. First is volume. Here I'm looking for a range in volume. I want to know if you can clap loudly, softly, and how well you can carry the volume. Next is appropriateness. Here I want to see how well your clapping fits the context that you provide for your clapping. Well, for example, jazzy clapping might fit a context for a music party, while more rhythmic clapping might be more appropriate as an accompaniment for a dance setting. And finally, there's creativity. For creativity, I'm interested in hearing how well you put all of the elements of your clapping together in a creative way that shows what you know and understand about different clapping techniques and ways to vary the sound of your clapping. Do you understand the goals and success criteria for your clapping? Well, I think I understand what I'm supposed to do, said the final participant, and how you'll be assessing me. I'm going to clap for you so you can better understand how people like me can clap. That's correct, replies the professor. Do you have any other questions before you clap for me? No, said the fellow participant. I think I understand what I'm expected to do and how you'll be assessing my clapping. After thinking to himself, the participant smiles and announces, I'm ready to begin. I'm going to clap like I would at a pep rally. Thanks for that great performance, says Professor Clappington. Now I'd like to discuss your work with you. As you recall, we had 3 criteria: volume, appropriateness, and creativity. Professor Clappington and the third participant discussed the performance based on each of the 3 criteria. He gives separate scores and comments on each dimension and makes suggestions on how the participant can improve his clapping in the future. Consider the potential impact on student performance as suggested by the scenarios in this parable, especially when learning goals and success criteria are clearly understood by students. While slightly facetious, the Clapping Institute can help remind us, as teachers, that sometimes our students don't always have a clear understanding of learning goals or the expected criteria for success, even when we have them in our own minds and have used them to develop our instruction. Luckily, these are things completely in the control of all teachers, and sometimes just a reminder is all we need to help us use these helpful components of formative assessment to promote greater student achievement in our classrooms.